Bonjour et bienvenue à Cruising Le Cut. Je suis sur un bateau sur le canal du Midi, en France. And that's about where my French ends because I didn't even do O-level. But I'm on this boat for the next 7 days, cruising from Port Cassafrière up to Trèbes, and you are very welcome to come along for the journey.
This is France, and the Canal du Midi runs approximately here for 150 miles. In just a week, we would be doing only this stretch, about 62 miles long.
Now you might expect that on a 7-day canal trip like this I would bring my long-standing canal wife Lorna, but this is France, so instead I brought my canal mistress. Bonjour, Sally.
Bonjour.
The day had started early with a trip to Bristol Airport, which is not actually in Bristol at all, but somewhat to the south it turns out. After a bit of breakfast and a browse, we were off for a 2-hour jaunt to the sun. Whoosh! I love takeoff. In the blink of an eye, we were over the Mediterranean coast, descending into Béziers with a literal bump. That woke us all up. A short taxi ride took us to the base of Le Boat in Port Cassafrière. This was a press trip organised for me by Le Boat, who have bases all over France and other countries too, with all sorts of different sizes of boats. This was to be ours, Mystique 1, and after a good explanation of everything inside the boat, our trainer then took us up to the flybridge to explain how to drive. And no, it's not the same as a narrowboat. There's a steering wheel, not a tiller, and you're in the middle, not at the back. And it's rather wider than a narrowboat, but it does have bow thrusters, which are immensely useful. Before I knew it, I was steering us out of the basin and onto the canal. Carefully. It needed very small movements of the wheel, and, in an aspect that is like a narrowboat, takes a while for any steering input to take effect, so it's very easy to oversteer until you get used to it. I turned the boat around and we went back to base with the training complete. Later that day, while the boat was moored on the canal bank, I recorded a tour, which I'll show you now so as to set the scene before we head out. First of all, along the sides, there are numerous cleats where you can tie mooring lines to make sure the boat doesn't drift off. Here's the one at the back, for example, keeping us in place. Rather sensibly, there are thick, stiff rubber bumpers around the sides to take any knocks, such as when you're in the locks. For when you're moving around the boat, there are plenty of sturdy handrails which are very easy to grab and hold onto. The gunnels are also easily wide enough to walk along without any issues. In the event you moor at a paid site, there's a hookup cable for mains electricity. Also on the back is an access for the gas bottle. Should anyone fall overboard, there is a life ring. Steps from that rear platform lead up to the flybridge, which is both a social space as well as somewhere to steer from. There are cushioned seats around one side of a table at the back, and more opposite that on the other side. On our boat, we also had a gas barbecue, though we never ended up using it. Under the seats are things like life jackets and mooring paraphernalia, as well as a hose for refilling the water tank. You can steer from up here, and it's where we spent most of our time. It's very simple: forwards, backwards, and a steering wheel. Across the front, here folded down, is a bimini top which provides shade when moored, but this has to be down for travel, else it would get ripped off by the bridges. You get a splendid view all around the boat from this driving position. To the side there's a sliding hatch which gives you access to steps down into the cabin. They are a bit steep, but you get used to them very quickly. And this is what the main living area inside the boat looks like. Another driving position in case the weather is poor, and a spacious dinette with table for meals or playing games in the evenings or whatever. You have a mains generator on board with simple controls to start and stop it. There are a small number of mains sockets. These are live when the generator is running or if you're plugged into shore mains. 2 USB sockets are also here, but that's it for USBs, so be prepared if there's lots of people aboard with phones that need charging. A sliding hatch gives you access to the deck from the side. There isn't one on the other side though, as that's taken up by the dinette. Curtains give you privacy at night. Each room has a fan, though there is also aircon as long as you have mains power. Moving back from the lounge takes you to the kitchen, or galley if you want to be nautical. It's got whatever you're likely to need: a 3-burner gas hob with oven underneath, a sink, cutlery drawer, pots, pans, cups and such like are also provided. You will need to buy your own washing up liquid and dishcloth or sponge, as well as things like paper towels for spills and other cleaning up. The microwave oven works when on hookup or the generator is on, and below that is a fridge which runs all the time from the boat's batteries. Behind the galley are 2 cabins which are almost identical. They can each be configured as a double bed or 2 singles, and they each have an ensuite toilet and shower. There's enough space to shower easily, and the hot water tank holds 80 litres if memory serves me correctly. You can't have long showers, but there's enough if you're economical. Here's a rear cabin configured as a twin. Again, there's a fan for ventilation, as well as windows which can open to let in a breeze or let any smells out. Storage is limited, this is a boat after all, but you get this cupboard at the end of the bed, and there's also a shelf above. For comparison, this is Sally's cabin, made up as a double. The bathroom is an ensuite much as the previous one. However, at the bow is the master cabin, aka my room for the week. It is obviously bigger than the rear ones, with a double bed and more shelves and cupboard space, but as usual I just lived out of my suitcase. The greater luxury here is that the toilet and shower compartments are separate, unlike the rear cabins where they're just one room. These are pump-out toilets with a flush. You just press a button and it all disappears into a holding tank. For light and ventilation there's a hatch in the roof, and those are the air conditioning controls. And you're presented with a thick folder of reference information about how the boat and boating works. With the induction completed, we are now ready to head off, but because I am in part intending to navigate by phone and also look up points of interest and information about the places we're visiting, as well of course as send a few sneaky messages back home saying, look what a lovely time I'm having, I needed mobile data while roaming on my phone. And in one of those weird coincidences, about a month before I came here, I was contacted by the folks at Saily.com, and they said, would you like to try our new roaming eSIM? And I didn't really know anything about eSIMs, but I looked it up and I said, actually, that would come in really handy. I'm about to go to France, so yes, please. Now, I've always said I won't promo anything that I don't actually like, and I can report I do like Saily because I've tried it and it works. What happens is, instead of you having to take your old SIM out of the phone and muck about with needing a paperclip to get it out and then buy a new SIM when you land in the foreign country and not lose your old SIM and so on, the eSIM is just an app. You download the Saily app from the App Store or the Google Play Store or whatever, run it on your phone, log into your account, and you say, I am going to this country for this long and I need this much data. Enter the code Cruising the Cut at checkout for 15% discount, don't forget that bit, and then you press install and it puts this eSIM onto your phone. There's no messing about with hardware, it just does it through the app. And when you get to your foreign country or region of the world, it activates and bingo, magically somehow you have roaming data at very affordable rates on your phone. And I've tried it and it works. I put it onto the phone and I got here and it just had data. Don't ask me how they do it, it's technical stuff, but it works. And of course, now you've got the app on your phone for the rest of your life. Wherever you go in the world, you can just go, well, now I'm going here for this long and I want this much data. Bosh, press the button and you've got another eSIM for wherever you are. So you've always got data. You can always stay connected. They run in over 190 countries and 8 regions, and it is run and operated by NordVPN, who of course are very well known, very well respected, and that means good support. Plus, because they are very technical people, it also offers on the SIM some features like web protection, ad blocking, and a virtual location. You can tell the SIM to pretend it's actually somewhere else completely if for whatever reason your data needs to think it's in another country. So look, it does work. I've tried it. If you are going abroad for holiday or business or whatever, definitely have the Saily app on your phone at least. Have a go, have a look at their data rates. It might well be better than your at-home provider. Just remember to use the code CruisingTheCut at checkout for 15% off, and use the link in the video description to go and find out all about it. Right, with that done, let's do some boating. And so, for the first time without the staff to instruct, I carefully edged the boat from its mooring, trying not to hit the one immediately in front of us. This achieved, we turned left onto the canal and began our grand journey from Port Cassaffière to Trèbes. To start with, I took things very gently while getting used to the steering, and also because there were lots of moored boats to see, of huge variety. Big, little, wide, narrow, everything. Le Boat had given us an excellent map book. It's a bit like the Nicholson's and Pearson's guides for the UK canals. It was a glorious day, so Sally immediately abandoned any pretence at boating, taking up her intended position for the rest of the trip. Look at this mighty ship on the left, and up ahead, our first bridge. We'd been warned that the bridges are very narrow and low, but clearly that doesn't apply to the newer ones. And as you'll see, even their small bridges have more space than many on the British canals. How marvellous to reside on a beautiful Dutch barge in the south of France. I have envy. For curiosity, I briefly tried full throttle, though the boats are, rather sensibly, limited, so you can't actually go above the 6-knot speed limit. I was getting the hang of it by now, but then there was our first encounter with a boat coming the other way. I did have to put the camera down for this, but we passed without any issues. It was a little bit windy, which became a theme especially later in the week. There were just over 30 lock chambers we'd need to go through, and it wasn't long before the first came into view. The chambers have curved sides, which was done for strength apparently, like an eggshell. It does make them awkward to manoeuvre into though. Each one has the cutest lock cottage beside it. And though the water rushes in, you hold the boat to the sides with ropes to keep it steady. We set off again, pleased with no incidents at our first écluse, as they call locks, and we sat back to enjoy the scenery. Aha! Now that's more of a challenge. It brings to mind the bridges of the South Stratford Canal, which are exceptionally tight. Let's see if I can do it without a scrape. Phew! A big sigh of relief. I hope they were all very impressed with my steering. There are a lot of what appear to be permanently moored boats along the canal. It makes for great viewing. And one thing that's even more prevalent? Vineyards. You've never seen so many. It's a shame I don't drink wine, really. At this point, the day was starting gently to draw to a close, and we thought it best to find somewhere to moor. And the space right after this bridge was listed in the guidebook as a valid mooring spot. But we could not, for the life of us, see how we were supposed to moor in amongst all this vegetation, because it was all just brambles and nettles, and no way to sensibly bang any pins into the ground. It just seemed inconceivable that this really was supposed to be moorable. So we moved, and luckily found a space with wooden mooring bollards to tie to, albeit amongst some trees and bushes. Crucially, the boat was secure, and we'd made it with no problems. Now we just needed some food, so we walked along the path to the nearby village for supplies.
We have moored, and we have been for quite a long trek actually, to the supermarché, but we have bought some provisions, various bags full of thing. What have we got? Got some water, because it's very hot here. We've got, of course, this is France, so there is a couple of baguettes. And then I also bought, oh yes, this is France, so we got brioche, not brioche, a croissant, le croissant, of course. Plus, hang on, I discovered the cheese counter, and it was quite an extensive cheese counter. Now, as it happens, I really only like cheddar, but they didn't seem to have any, so I've got Emmental, which I think will have to do the job. So now, frankly, a bit tired. Time for a cup of tea. We bought some milk as well, brought tea bags with us, so cup of tea, chill for the night, and then proper cruising starts in earnest tomorrow. Good night.
It was Sunday, day 2 of our trip. We set off from our wild mooring in amongst the trees and sadly came across the site of this burned out boat. Luckily, it was the only one we saw on the trip, but it felt just like being back on the British canals for a moment. Just as in Britain, here en France, you are required to go slowly past moored craft so as not to rock them with your wake. But that's fine, as it gives you lots of time to peek at the amazing variety of boats on the French canals. I mean, just look at this enormous thing. It's fantastic. There were to be 32 locks on our journey, and the first of the day was approaching at Villeneuve-les-Béziers. We edged along cautiously, enjoying the views. Unfortunately, with all these boats moored right and left, I couldn't see a lock landing to put Sally off at, which you're supposed to do. Some of the locks have stone staircases just before them, but you couldn't see if that was the case here through the bridge hole, so we just went on in as the light was green. And there was no staircase, so Sally ended up clambering off the boat in an ungainly manner once we were inside the lock chamber. With the ropes looped around bollards as required, we waited for the lockkeeper to press the buttons, but although she'd seen us, she vanished for a few minutes before at last reappearing and letting us through. Lock done, we pressed on past these holiday makers waiting to go down. And before we knew it, the next lock was upon us, which, as you can see, has steps up the side. This inconsistency led me to muck up the process on more than one occasion, to my great aggrievement, as I like to imagine I know what I'm doing. As there were 32 locks, we'll spare you the details of going through every one, but there was an amazing lock flight on the journey which you won't want to miss. For the moment, let's just enjoy this stunning scenery and superb weather. Notice, by the way, how quiet the boat engine is. La Boat have silenced both it and the generator very effectively. In the baking sunshine, we spotted joggers doing what was clearly a large-scale organised event on the towpath. Rather them than us, it was so warm. And they kept on coming for miles. Not only do some of the locks have a traffic light system, but it turns out so do the bridges, and this one was rather interesting as it's a lift bridge, but quite literally the entire bridge lifts up and down on pulleys to the side, which you can see. I've read that it's unused now and stays up, but it's still one to duck for as you go under. Mind your head! This bridge had plenty of height, but was a touch on the narrow side. It would be a test of my steering skills, so naturally I took it at full blast while filming. Mind your head again. The city of Béziers lay ahead, which is extremely pretty and very ancient, dating back to a Greek colony in 575 BC. There's a canal basin right in the middle of town with paid overnight moorings, which we were hoping to stop at so we could explore. You come towards it under these pedestrian and road bridges, which also appear to have floodgates built into them. You can now understand why the Le Boat instructions tell you to travel with the bimini hood down, else it wouldn't stay with you for very long. We had the green light for the first city lock, but things didn't go quite to plan.
Well, after a little moment there or two in that lock, in which I was told off twice by the lock keeper, once because I started to use my engine to balance the boat against the flow of water. It's just natural, it's what I do in the locks in Britain, but you are firmly told keep the engine in neutral in the locks here, so she gave me a telling off for that. And then when the level was almost up to the top, there was no more turbulence coming in, I started saying to Sally, right, loosen the ropes and get ready for the off, and she, no, the gates are not open. And obviously she's completely right, we're supposed to wait until the lock is actually open until we proceed. But there's me just in my, casual laissez-faire, shall we say, manner, just getting ready to go because all the turbulence had stopped, and really, quite frankly, we could have got ready to go, but no, we must obey the rules. And then we wanted to moor here in the basin at Béziers, and there's lots of mooring spots, and that nice chap on the side again said moor after the second boat. He meant be the second boat, so there was a little lost in translation there, and I went too far, and then no here, and then I had to back up, and then I had to go in. And then I kept hitting twice. I hit the horn button instead of the bow thruster button. That was embarrassing. I think that's the most embarrassing thing, because everybody, it's a hell of a horn. Everybody looked round. I mean, we're in the middle of town here. There's loads of people. And they were all, what's that? Oh, that's the idiot tourist on the Le Boat hire boat. Look at him being an idiot. And then I hit the horn again. I was like, sorry, I was trying for the bow thruster. Eventually got the bow thruster. Eventually got the boat in with this lovely, lovely French bloke who obviously runs the marina here. We've now got to go and pay him some money because we're going to stop overnight. But what a fantastic spot to stop right in the heart of Béziers so we can go and do a little bit of touristing.
It's a funny thing, but on the British canals I'm not terribly interested in visiting the towns and villages because largely I know what they look like. But pop me down in France and I'll be sitting in un café avec un drink before you can say santé. And so we did, and watched the world go by. We spotted this petit train which does tourist trips and resolved to try it later. But first we went a-wandering round the narrow cobbled streets. Just around this corner we got our first glimpse of the Cathédrale Saint-Nazaire de Béziers, a Roman Catholic church dating from the 13th century and built on the site of an earlier building which was destroyed in the Massacre of Béziers in 1209. It's quite the history, and it's quite the spectacular view, as you've had to climb up a steep hill to get here, but it's certainly worth it. There's the River Orbe, and from another angle you can see over houses in the city. It's just a glorious feast for the eyeballs, especially in weather like this. We kept going and found this bustling indoor market. Outside, a festival dedicated to Argentina was taking place, though we never found out why. I've not seen a Ford Escort Cabrio for about 30 years, and this one's immaculate. We boarded Le Petit Train for a trip around the sights. They give you earbuds, and the commentary is in about 8 languages. It was also very bumpy. Obviously, it took us past the cathedral and round the wonderful streets. We saw the old bridge, the Pont Vieux, built in 1134, and an official historic monument that was recently restored. We also got a good view of the 7-lock Fonceran lock flight, which we'd be tackling the next day, and which is quite the experience, let me tell you. That's a passenger trip boat in the top chamber. The flight then goes down 71 feet over a 300-metre distance. Here's the canal aqueduct and Sally's hands. We even got to go past our own boat moored in the basin. There it is! It had been a busy and tiring day of boating and exploring, but 5 more days remained. In the next episode, we go through Europe's oldest navigable canal tunnel, and you'll see why going up the Falseran flight is unlike any locks I've done before. Hello, Niagara! Thanks for watching. Cheerio!